Welcome to the Baseball Corner with Austin Orman.
Payoff pitch. Hot drive. Deep left. Grand slam. Bobby Witt Jr. wins it. Sensational.
The Nick Sainert.
Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs win the World Series. Brian makes the play. It's over. And the Cubs have finally won it all.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Keep an eye on the ball as they go around the horn from local prep baseball to college baseball and even the minor and major leagues. Now, here are your hosts, Nick Sainert and Austin Orman.
That's right. Welcome in. It is the Baseball Corner on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Austin Orman and Nick Sainert with you. Thanks a ton for being along for the ride here on a Monday night. Lots to get to here in the realm of baseball. We'll start in-state with Nebraska, and then we'll certainly branch out throughout the course of the show. Of course, I'm Austin, joined as always by Nick. How we doing, Nick?
Hello, Austin. Always good to be back with you. A lot of stuff to catch up on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to it because right before we went on air, I said three words. Cubs are good. That's all I needed to say. They knocked off the Cardinals 11-0 yesterday. Couldn't have been a better way to end the Sunday, the holiday weekend, than with a dominating Cubs win.
There is few better things in life than that for you. I love that for you. The Royals are not doing quite the same, but they win a road series against Arizona.
That's
Can't
right.
be mad about that at all, and they have a chance to continue to put some distance between your Cubbies and the Pirates here this week.
People are mad because Bobby is not a starter.
Yeah.
Which, are you one of those people?
Do we want to get into that now?
Sure. There was all-star snubs all over the place, though.
Like Maikel Garcia.
Yes.
Like Carlos Estevez.
Yep.
Like Seth Lugo, but he was hurt.
Okay.
But my
name somebody that's not a Royal. That was snubbed.
I can't. Those are the only
Juan
snubs.
Soto was snubbed. Seiya Suzuki snubbed.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Busch
Busch probably snubbed.
Seiya Suzuki's having just hit his 25th home run of the year yesterday.
Dare I say Randy Arozarena?
Okay.
Hitting better than Julio Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Especially recently?
Yes.
But whatever. And that's kind of my issue here as we talk about all-star snubs is that last year, Bobby Witt Jr. did not start the all-star game despite having better numbers pretty much across the board than Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah.
But Gunnar Henderson had the hype, a little bit younger in his career than Bobby was, and had more home runs. Okay, fast forward to this year, Bobby Witt Jr. has the most Baseball Reference wins above replacement, is top 2 or top 3 in Fangraphs wins above replacement by a shortstop. And he gets usurped by Jacob Wilson of the Athletics, who has a high batting average. Bobby Witt Jr. had the higher batting average last year. I know it's not the end-all be-all, but Bobby had the stats to back it up last year, but didn't get in because of reputation. Now this year, he's still leading baseball and especially Major League Baseball shortstops in a lot of categories and still doesn't get the nod. And of course, this is due to the fan vote, right? That's why Jacob Wilson ends up starting. So if Royals fans are upset about it, we have only ourselves to blame. It's not really, on anything besides that. Like, Bobby is clearly the best shortstop in baseball. People know that, and that's what matters. But I think from the Royals fan perspective, it's frustrating that now Bobby Witt Jr. hasn't started the All-Star game in back-to-back seasons despite being the best shortstop in baseball for two completely different arbitrary reasons.
I'm so caught off guard. Number one, I go back and forth, I guess, of whether or not I like the fan vote.
Yeah.
Also, then I ask myself, okay, how much does it really matter?
Right.
I think it goes to show there was you mentioned something last year about Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. The hype was more for Gunnar Henderson.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said it felt like it was the opposite from where we were at.
Really?
Like, I feel like Gunnar Henderson, and plus I think it helps because the Orioles were a much better organization last year than they are right now currently.
Well, I think even 2 years ago, they won 100 games,
Sure.
and then that's where the Gunnar Henderson hype comes from. Then he gets rewarded the year after.
Well, that, and then they have the one of the top farm systems in baseball. Yeah. They're bringing in all these guys that you and I specifically saw play in Omaha or in the college ranks, and it's like, man, here we go. It's showtime. They even, I mean, whether it was Gunnar Henderson, whether it was Adley Rutschman, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's they've just kind of fallen apart, which maybe that's the other side is to some conversation at some point down the road. is what do the Orioles do? Yeah. They are a fascinating story because it looked like things were looking so far up and that they were going to consistently be able to compete in their division. And Adley Rutschman is still one of the best catchers in baseball, but you don't hear about him. You don't talk about him. We don't know what Adley Rutschman's doing this season. And so it's a really, really fascinating scenario situation to where everything was looking so perfect for the Orioles, to where they had brought guys up through their farm system. They were going to be able to have, 4 or 5 years of club control for these guys. That was their championship window. You win 100 games like you're supposed to. And then just 2 short years later, you aren't even contending for a division title, but you're not contending for a wild card spot either.
I think the simple thing to do is that Baltimore trades Kansas City its hitters, Kansas City trades Baltimore its pitchers.
Please.
That's kind of how it works. I think there's a match made in heaven there. I'll add this on fan voting as well, and Bobby Witt Jr. It kind of feels, Cubs are a Midwestern team, right? Big city, operating like a small market, mid-market team at some point.
Don't remind me.
I'm sorry. I've had to deal with that my whole life as well. But I feel like there's some element of it feels kind of coastal bias-ish. And kind of reputationally based in some cases, where I know the fan voting is one thing, but why is it Gunnar Henderson on the East Coast last year? Why is it Jacob Wilson, whose other stats besides batting average and maybe on base percentage, but that's really closer to, just because Wilson doesn't draw a lot of walks either. It just feels like another thing for Midwestern fans, Royals fans, little old Royals fans to say, what is it about the league that our guy can't get his due? In the All-Star game, right? In front of God and everybody. Because we know that Bobby Witt Jr. was on Major League Baseball Network talking to Team USA manager Mark DeRosa, where it was announced that Bobby would be the starting shortstop for Team USA. That's a bigger deal to me than the All-Star game. But how many casual fans are going to tune into the World Baseball Classic versus the All-Star game? I'm betting there are going to be more casuals that tune into the All-Star game. And even if it means nothing, even if the players know that Bobby Witt Jr. is the best shortstop in baseball, sometimes it's nice to have that recognition get backed up. And then I see something like Maikel Garcia, who's really only had, the first majorly productive 90-game-ish stint of his career. Yeah. Not get rewarded, but Jazz Chisholm, who's played like 30 fewer games, does. And that's where, when I think about this too, maybe it'll be, 5-10 years from now, we'll look back and say, oh, that's interesting. I mean, Gunnar Henderson was an above-average player, but not the superstar Bobby Witt Jr. was. Oh, yeah, I remember Jacob Wilson. He was really fun when he came up as a rookie, but just never got on base to stick. So there's an aspect of all-star voting and fan voting that I really like, that it kind of captures the moment. This is who was really good to start this season, except then the rules get twisted and it works out different ways, in different situations. And it just feels like, Bobby Witt Jr. might always be behind the 8 ball, not getting the 100% just due that he deserves.
Jacob Wilson's such a crazy story as well.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes from the the organizations he's with, right? The athletics. I was just looking at this, and this is kind of going off to the side a little bit. But we throw around the word parity in college football all the time. There is a lot of parity in Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really good teams. You look at granted.
Well, let's do the opposite. Count the sellers. That's going to be really instructive if you come to the trade deadline.
You can't.
On 1 or 2 hands. That's all the sellers that there are.
And that's where, okay, so in terms of, this is where we get interesting with sellers, and buyers and sellers and teams that kind of just remain neutral. Because an organization like the Nationals, who we'll get to them in just a couple of minutes, an organization like the Nationals, they decide for this, they want this new energy. That doesn't mean sell. Like, if you're a manager and you're being persuaded to go manage the Washington Nationals, you need to know that there's a young core.
Yeah.
It's not like NFL to where you can pitch it on a quarterback that they're going to draft next week at the draft and that it's instantly going to be there. There's a very good chance. Let's say they hire Austin Orman to be the manager of the Nationals, right? Huge move. But, okay, hey, Austin, don't worry. We're going to get Cade Anderson so you kind of have your starting pitcher next Sunday in the draft. We'll get him. Don't worry. Okay, but it could be 2 years and you're gone, you're fired, and Kate Anderson's still in AAA.
It'd be 2 years if he's on the Skeens track.
Yeah.
Because he's not Paul Skeens. So it's going to take him a couple seasons, but I might not be around because you got rid of all the talent before he got there.
Bingo. And they're not going to, but like, let's say hypothetically speaking, a team like the Nats say, we're going to sell. All right, CJ Abrams, James Wood, one of you guys, see ya. Mm-hmm. No, that was your return for Juan Soto.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you get rid of him? So like that type of mentality is kind of fascinating to me. Okay, so let's go through the sellers. Okay, because I think sellers are going to be actually easier to name than buyers.
1,000,000%.
Okay, so because buyers have to make the decision of, are we good enough to just get in and maybe we strike gold without giving away some of our capital? Or do we need one more piece to really get over the top?
Yeah, I think that the two categories are, is this a guy that helps us get to the playoffs or a guy that helps us get through the playoffs?
And I think a lot of it's, so, I mean, we know it is, so much of it is risk reward.
Yes.
To where it's easy for me to talk about it in the frame of the Cubs. And so I'm going to try to not do this in the frame of the Cubs. But naturally, I'm sure I will. It's, okay, here we go. Actually, I'm going to use the Cubs because they're easy to. The Cubs are going to make the playoffs. I mean, barring a torrential downslide. So the Cubs are going to make the playoffs. Now, can they compete against the Dodgers? Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So then I think like that conversation for the Cubs is they need to be aggressive buyers. But then you look at a team like I'm trying to find one. Okay, Brewers will stay in the NL Central. Probably not a World Series contender. Good enough to make the playoffs on their own.
Yeah.
Is it really worth giving away capital?
It is not worth them making the CC Sabathia trade again.
Bingo.
No, it's not.
And so that's, I think, the question that all of these quote unquote contending teams are asking themselves right now. Okay, so let's name sellers. Pirates. Everybody's on the block except for O'Neal Cruz and Paul Skeens.
I might put O'Neal out there.
Okay. I
might.
Where do you think his career's heading? We don't talk about O'Neal Cruz enough.
I got to pull up the numbers just so I don't speak out of
That's
turn.
fine. I'll kind of give the background on O'Neal Cruz. I mean, he kind of burst onto the scene. He was a guy that's before Ellie De La Cruz. So don't get those two guys mixed up, folks. But O'Neal started his career at shortstop, is a switch hit guy that can hit for power. Swings the bat pretty well over the course of his career, has dealt with injuries, and has now made the shift to center field.
I think that his ceiling is all-star.
Okay.
I think he only gets there once, maybe twice.
Okay.
Because Skeens is going to be the Pirates' pity all-star as long as he's there, unless he gets traded.
But
then
is
maybe
it
it's
pity?
O'Neal. I think so.
Okay.
Because I think that he's a guy that has all the talent in the world. I just don't know if he'll be able to sustain it mentally for 140 plus games in a season, right? You see these clips come out about him, not taking it seriously all the time, making these dumb mental mistakes. And it's unfortunate because he does have all the talent in the world. I'm just not sure how mentally locked in he is. So I think we look back at the end of the day and say, I mean, I think O'Neal Cruz and Ellie De La Cruz probably end their career with about the same kind of value.
Okay.
I think Ellie's going to have a more favorable reputation down the line because I think he plays the game closer to the quote-unquote right way. I think he's obviously stuck at shortstop longer. Yeah. I think what will hold Ellie back are the actual flaws in his game, not necessarily his mindset.
I also wonder if Ellie is going to turn into not this generation's Joey Votto, to where he's just always on the Reds.
Maybe.
I think a lot of this for these guys, O'Neal Cruz is in this. I think Ellie's in this as well. Like, don't forget, this is supposed to be the Reds' year.
And they're what, 2 games above 500?
They're barely swimming, staying afloat. Now a lot of season left, and the NL Central is so much of a roller coaster. It can always change because it's never consistent. Now the Cubs do look somewhat consistent, but that's where it's like with the Reds. You chose to call up Chase Burns. He has not performed well. I think they were, I'm sure, hoping for like the Mizorowski effect as well, or Paul Skeens. That entire division, if you look up and down there through the Pirates, the Reds, and the Brewers, are all clinging to extremely exciting pitching prospects.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yet the Reds and the Pirates, it hasn't helped them out in any sort of fashion.
No.
So okay. So sellers.
We have Pittsburgh.
We have Pittsburgh.
I think Washington should. I don't think they will.
Okay.
For the reasons that you laid out.
Yep.
I think Atlanta will.
Who would be on the block? Like, is it Kelenic?
I think he could be there depending on Marcell Ozuna's contract.
Because then you still have to worry about keeping Ronald Acuna happy.
You do. You're not going to sell Ozzy Albies at this point.
No.
So I think Marcell Ozuna is on an expiring.
Schwelly getting hurt, I think, hurts.
It does.
Because he would have been a name, I think, that not traded, but would have said, I don't know.
Well,
okay.
Did you sell Chris Sale? He's pitching well.
Yeah.
You're out of it. Do you see what you can get back for a guy that I think he's a rental. I'm waiting for the Spotrac page to pull up here. But I think Chris Sale, Marcell Ozuna would be names that Atlanta could sell. Guys that were supposed to help them this year didn't work. So yeah, it's a club option for next year for Chris Sale.
So
I think you have to ship him
because you can get more value for it.
Yes, for the future.
The fact that you're giving some other club control for another year is exciting, and it's intriguing for wherever he goes.
Colorado should, probably won't.
Oh, see,
they're dumb.
I think they'll sell, or they'll want to sell. I don't think they have many pieces to sell. The only piece that I see is maybe Marquez, who is having a bad year, but then I think the other piece is Ryan McMahon.
What about Arizona? They're 2 games under 500 right now, and in terms of the wild card, that puts the Arizona Diamondbacks 4.5 games back of the Giants.
I just don't. I see the Diamondbacks being pretty quiet. I also wouldn't
sell Suarez, sell Merrill Kelly, maybe Naylor potentially.
I just wonder where Suarez fits into places. Third baseman,
yeah,
and this is not.
Well, there've been some talks with them in the Royals potentially, at least some chatter.
This is not a homer pick. The one place I could see Suarez is Chicago.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, he's good. He's a pure rental.
Mm-hmm.
The Diamondbacks continue to build around these young pieces. Cattell, Corbin Carroll, right?
Perdomo.
Yes, exactly. Christian Walker, or no, is Christian Walker? No, he's gone now.
Gone. Yep.
But they're 2 games under 500 in one of the toughest divisions in baseball, with the Dodgers in their division. And the Giants, who
made their move.
Really good. Yeah, exactly. I look at the Chicago Cubs, and I know the other team that's been talked about with Eugenio Suarez has been the New York Yankees. I see the Yankees more so going after McMahon.
Yeah, I think
I think a left-handed bat in that stadium, it just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
You move Chisholm back to second base. I think that's the play there. Here's why. The Cubs have the future in Matt Shaw.
Yeah.
And Matt Shaw is too good to be up or to be sent back down to AAA. However, when you're trying, goes back to the conversation you ask yourself if you are Jed Hoyer or JJ Piccolo for the Royals or whoever it is. You have to ask yourself, are we one bat away? Are we one piece away? And I think from having a consistent lineup 1 through 9 for the Chicago Cubs, they're missing a power hitting third baseman.
And I think that's going to be how the Cubs beat the Dodgers. To go back to what you said, is both teams' pitching staffs have been decimated by injuries in their own way. If it comes to a slugfest, you might need that extra bat. The Dodgers have scored, I still believe it's the most runs in baseball with 500. I think the Cubs are only, 8 runs behind, I think, according to what I have pulled up here. Yeah, if you can go get another bat for, even it's a rental in Suarez, maybe it's a guy for a year or 2, I think that's there. Since we're up against the clock, let's finish out with the sellers. Do you think Baltimore moves some pieces?
That's the other part, though, is going back to it of who do you move? Like, they're not Adley Rutschman's untouchable.
Kobe Mayo. You got to trade from AAA at this point. Guys that are blocked. Kobe Mayo. Do you trade Heston Kierstad? Do you package those guys for a frontline starter that has control? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Cleveland, do they sell? Do they stay in it? Because
Cleveland is struggling.
They are.
10 losses in a row.
I am not mad about it in the slightest, but this is the margin that they've walked. Cleveland could just say it went in our favor last year with our great bullpen. Bullpen took a step back. We lost Naylor. Offense hasn't come along. But this is the way we function, right? That's why I don't think Milwaukee's going to make huge moves. That's why I don't think Tampa in the midst of the wild card race is going to make big moves. I think these kind of mid-tier spending franchises will just say, we know what our formula is in the long term. It didn't work out that well because Cleveland's not moving off Jose Ramirez. Not going to happen. They need to replenish their starting pitching depth, though.
They should.
You think?
I do.
Okay.
I think it's best for Jose's career. And I think that it's...
Is he the new Lindor for them?
But what was Lindor?
A stud.
He was.
Lindor was incredible and still is.
But you have done nothing to build around him.
Right. Which is why I'm saying, do you have the cornerstone and can you sell off your expirings? You have. And you won the division. You've made the playoffs a couple times.
I also just wonder how often does an organization like Cleveland keep him around just because of what he means to the franchise?
Right. The only other two teams,
even if that means, because they could, Jose's having a type of year to where they'd be able to get a haul for him.
Yes.
And so that's where it's like, we have this conversation about prospects all the time. Like, man, you look back and you should have traded them at this point and stuff. I think one of the worst things that you can do as an organization is look back 2 years or 3 years down the road and go, we could have gotten so much for him, but we let emotion get in the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where teams run into trouble. And this is a moment where I think, or organizationally, the Guardians have to look at this and say, what are we able to get now versus running the risk of what we're able to get 3 years down the road?
Right.
And are we willing to give up potentially moving on from a cornerstone of our franchise? Are we okay with turning this page and saying we're going to build for these next 5 years with the pieces that we get from a potential MVP contender in Jose Ramirez, and just say, look, it's at the end of the day, it's business.
Right.
I think that I'm not envious at all of those guys in those rooms because it's a very, very difficult conversation to have internally, but then also to try to pitch it to the fan base.
Fans. Yeah.
That's, I mean, you better hope it works.
You have to. The only other non-obvious teams right outside of the White Sox and the Athletics then are in the AL West for me. Does Texas sell and does Los Angeles sell?
Texas is fascinating.
Yeah.
How are they
what an
not
organization.
Better? How are they not better?
No cornerstone. I mean, yeah, you have Seager and Simeon, but those guys don't feel like your franchise cornerstones. They just demoted Young. Adolis Garcia's been okay. Langford's the guy, but he's still young.
And he's hurt.
Did
Seager make a mistake by going to Texas?
Over his bank account, no.
No. Like over in New York?
Hard to argue otherwise at this point. I mean, he got a ring out of it.
He did.
So not the end of the world.
Which feels faulty.
Well, I mean, he had Rangers Diamondbacks in that World Series.
Doesn't that entire Rangers World Series, though, feel phony?
Really weird.
Not phony.
Right.
Because they won it. But, like, we see the jokes all the time of, like, investigate it.
Yes.
Like that is genuinely what it feels like.
It was a 5-game series that was just bizarre. And then the Angels, I think, have to get rid of Taylor Ward.
Yeah.
Sooner and later.
I would agree.
Sooner and later.
Yeah, there's a lot of just, I mean, going back and forth. One trade that you think happens. What is it?
Ooh.
Involving the teams that we cheer for. Because that's what we're going to be known more.
I do think the Royals end up moving Seth Lugo.
Okay.
I really do. I would really like to see them move Carlos Estevez.
Okay.
I don't think it happens, but I think that they do end. I would like them to move him.
With the Cubs, they have such a strong farm system. They have Owen Casey, they have Kevin Alcantara, they have Moises Ballesteros. They have prospect after prospect that they can deal. I think that the one that makes the most sense, and you're going to probably be a fan of it, is like an Owen Casey for Seth Lugo. That's what it feels like is happening.
I believe it.
Because for the Royals, that gives them an outfielder in a time where they desperately need them.
Yeah.
And then for the Cubs, that gives them another frontline starting pitcher.
I think so.
And so
but if you're the Cubs, would you rather make that deal for Seth Lugo or a different one for Eugenio Suarez?
And that's where I lean towards Eugenio. Like, I think the name of the game is your ability to score runs. Cubs can do it as best as anybody right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at your lineup and go, okay, where are some potential holes? And in that 9 spot with Matt Shaw, there's certainly holes. If you can move Nico Horner down there, then you're cooking with gas and stuff. And Matt Shaw's fine. Like he's learning on the fly. You can tell that he's getting more and more comfortable, I think, with every single at bat. But it's just you're up against the clock here because you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do with Kyle Tucker. You need to figure out what you do with PCA.
We'll trade our right fielder for yours.
No, thank you. I saw a stat. Kaggs is 4 of his last 50.
Yeah, it's a problem. It's not good. It's not great.
You mean they rushed him?
I don't think they rushed him. I really don't. Is this our next conversation?
So what? Okay, yeah, it'll be our next conversation.
Let's go to break. We'll have the Kaggs conversation, and there is something we want to get to about Nebraska baseball.
Yes,
as it comes to recruiting. That's all ahead here on the Baseball Corner.
You're listening to Baseball Corner with Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket. Now's the time to grab your snacks. The second inning is next.
With UBT, you've got total control over your money. Like Doug, who runs his game day tailgate like a well-oiled machine.
I got burgers, brats, chicken, dogs, plus all the fixins'. And with the UBT Go app, I can track my food spending from anywhere.
Pro move.
They don't call me Grill Sergeant for nothing.
No matter your goals, UBT helps you feel good about reaching them. Union Bank and Trust. Member FDIC.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in, temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
Hop in the batter's box because it's time for the second inning of the Baseball Corner with Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket.
Second inning of the Baseball Corner, Austin Orman and Nick Sainert with you. Nick touched a nerve. We're going to get into it here on the Baseball Corner. What to do with and about Jack Caglione. Nick, since you brought it up, I'm going to give you the floor. In your opinion, after seeing Jack Caglione for a couple weeks in Omaha and monitoring him in the big leagues like Royals fans are, where are you at with Jack Caglione, how the Royals have handled him and how they should handle him moving forward?
It's like whoever suits up in the outfield for the Kansas City Royals in the big league club just loses their ability to play baseball.
Feels like it.
This has been a complete 180. I didn't expect him to take off and be an all-star, but I didn't expect him to have a negative wins above replacement number.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect him to be hitting less than .150. I mean, the man, he has 4 RBI. Like, that's where part of it's the Royals and part of it's what's around him. But you're talking about 4 RBI through
a month,
hitting
in the 6 hole.
Yeah. And that's not, I mean, that includes sacrifice flies. That includes rollover ground balls that get a guy in. That includes base hits up the middle. We're not talking, we can talk about this in terms of home runs. When the Royals brought him up, I've said it till I'm blue in the face. They categorized it as slugger Jack Caglione is here.
Yeah.
The Royals social media team and organization specifically chose the word slugger. This guy is here to hit bombs. Yes. And he did in the minors. He gets here, and I don't know if the approach changed. I don't know if it's such a jump from AAA to majors. I personally don't think he spent enough time in AAA. I think it's less about the jump from AAA to major and more about the jump from double to triple. That's where I am at for me.
Okay.
I don't know where you're at.
What is it about what he's doing that you think is off? What feels off about Jack Caglione to you?
I think, once again, it's essentially, it felt like, essentially we're talking, and this isn't uncommon by any means, for a guy to go from AA to the majors and just completely skip AAA. the reason I think that there's, and I was actually talking to somebody that is way smarter about this than I am, about the differences between levels. And he talked about how in AA, it's college pitching. There's not much difference. Guys establish a fastball. They'll be able to handle 2-3 pitches consistently.
Okay. But
really, you got to worry about being able to attack fastball. They'll pitch behind in the count, but they don't have great command of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they're really trying to sharpen that up. And so we see Jack, what he did at Florida, and then we see there be no drop off to AA. Not only is that meaning that Jack's a superior athlete, but that also means that, yeah, okay, it could be pretty similar. You're facing a lot of similar guys that what you saw in the SEC. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a jump for guys from like the Big Ten, from Group of 5 schools, or mid-major schools, I guess, going from college baseball where you're seeing guys top out at like 90. When you're in the SEC, you're facing the top 2 guys on a team's raw or rotation week in and week out. Guess what? Yeah, you're going to see 97 consistently. Yeah. So there's a little bit different there. But the jump from double to AAA is scouting reports are much more in depth. There's a lot more film on you. The technology is a lot more advanced, and guys are better. You're facing guys that have probably had stints in Major League Baseball, and they know how to attack hitters like you. Mm-hmm. Not that Jack isn't this like one of a kind freak of nature, really, really strong, really big, standing at 6'5", 250 pounds, but it's not a unicorn like it is in AA.
Right.
Guys know how to pitch to you. Guys know, okay, maybe this might be this might be a ball, but you're a young guy. You might not have the discipline. I'm going to try to get you to fish. And then that's going to set up the next pitch. And then we're setting up the next at bat. Like the micro versus macro conversation or an approach for AAA baseball, much closer to major leagues than it is to AA. That's where I think he struggled the most. He came on and he had confidence was at an all-time high at AAA. That's a big part of the game, the mental side of it, right? He was there for 2 series, one that was away in Utah, one that was at home in Omaha. Had a couple of home runs, hit one ball to the opposite field, and JJ Piccolo was like, yeah, we've seen enough. Well, that's different than what Mike Jersley just said on sports radio in Kansas City on Tuesday. How much growth were you able to see in those 5 days? That's where I was puzzled.
I kind of saw it coming because the Royals needed a spark.
Okay.
I also think that the Jack Caglione we've seen is the guy he's always been, which is number 1 to his credit and number 2 to his detriment. Cags did the same thing in college, but to your point, it was slower velocity. Breaking balls weren't quite as sharp.
Yeah.
So he could square it up. He could hit it more. Where he is not a Royals prospect is that he's 6'5", 250 and hits dingers.
Yeah.
That's not the guy the Royals typically draft. What is so perfectly Royals about Jack Caglione is that he hasn't taken walks and that he swings at everything. When you see a guy like this with this profile, like you said, slugger, you're kind of expecting some all or nothing. Except for the Royals, they're getting the nothing, not really the all. Jack Caglione has 3 multiple hit games, which is not necessarily what the Royals called him up to do. Yeah. They called him up to hit home runs. He has 2 home runs. They both came in the same game.
Yep.
Against Texas, right?
That's one of those 3 multi-hit games.
Which is just crazy to think about. Had a double and 3 singles against the White Sox and then one against, I think it was Seattle. I was just looking it up. But Jack Caglione's OPS right now, 441. Only slugging 241 with an on-base of 200. Now, if his on-base was 200 and his slug was 350, 400 because he's hitting the ball over the wall, you know what? For a young guy that you were asking to come up and give you a little bit of a spark in the bottom middle part of the order, that's fine.
Yeah.
The problem is that the Royals aren't getting the best of both worlds. They're not even getting the best of one world. They're getting the worst of both worlds because he continues to swing at pitches outside of the zone. He continues to chase. His chase rate is like bottom 10 percentile in baseball, chasing 38.4% of pitches out of the zone. Because he's chasing so much, his squared up percentage is only 1 out of 5. He only squares up 1 out of every 5 baseballs. For a guy that's what you brought him up to do.
Yeah.
Whiff percentage isn't terrible at 28.3 because he's swinging for the fences. His strikeout percent honestly isn't the worst at 22.6%. That's fine for a guy with his tools. Higher than you'd like it to be for a Michael Garcia, for example, or for John Raver and Nick Lofton, but those guys aren't running that up there. So you're okay with 22.6 in terms of the amount of times that he strikes out. but the walk percentage, he's only walking 4% of the time. That's Salvador Perez-esque.
Yeah.
But the difference is that Salvi's you know who he is. He's also a professional hitter who's done this for darn near 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he doesn't miss those pitches in the zone. Pitchers aren't throwing many in the zone to Jack Caglione. He's swinging at him anyways because he got away with it in college, and he's not doing the damage he should when other teams make mistakes. So that brings me to this, finally. I don't know that Jack Caglione was going to continue to learn and refine that approach in the minor leagues.
Okay.
Could he have? Yes. But I think to some degree, this is just who he is as a prospect. The Royals have never, since Kevin Seitzer left, not even the first time as hitting coach, since he left being a player, have not been able to teach approach, patience, plate discipline. Here's what you're looking for. I don't know what their scouting reports look like, but if this is who Jack Caglione is going to be as a free swinger, I would rather he fail at the major league level and try to learn those lessons quicker than continue to get away with punishing mistakes that aren't quite as bad at AAA, where maybe it's better for the confidence, and that's not a zero consideration. But yeah, maybe he did have some stuff to learn in the minors, but clearly the Royals weren't teaching him a lot, right? I think he just is who he is, and I don't trust this organization to develop his approach. So I would rather have him on the roster hoping he runs into one and figure something out than keep him at AAA with those underlying problems that are only going to be exposed later down the line.
But I think you look at what they can do in AAA, and there are Mike Jerschler, the manager of the Omaha Storm Chasers, has talked about this, of like their role. Yeah, they want to win, but at the end of the day, they're trying to get guys ready for the big league club.
Yeah.
And once again, so I will never forget listening to Mike Jerschler talk with sports radio down in Kansas City the week that Cags got called up. And they were like, what do you see when you look at him and say, okay, this is what we need to work on? And two things that he said. He goes, there's holes in his swing. Whether you want to believe it or not, there are holes in his swing. We need to figure those out. And he's like, that's just something that takes time. And then he said the ability to use all parts of the field. And
if you look at Cag's StatCast, he has one hit pretty much straight up the middle, one on the left side of second base, and then double against the shift to the left side. Otherwise, it's bend pull.
Yeah. And that's fine when you are hitting double-digit home runs in your first month. That's fine. Once again, all this can be alleviated, and this conversation is mute if he puts the ball over the wall. If in 108 at-bats, he has 10 home runs. Like, that's fine. However, we're sitting here going, you have one game where you've hit 2 home runs, and that's it. You only have 4 RBIs. You're not helping out. The team ABs are not there either. And so that's where, once again, just I don't want to say there's disconnect, because I don't think there is. I think that a lot of this was, if the Royals were winning games, we wouldn't have seen Jack yet. I think I mean I can speak to it. There's this timeline that they had to where it was Jack was going to get called up before the College World Series, just because
to Omaha.
Yeah, to Omaha. Let's be realistic here from a business standpoint. It would have brought people to the ballpark. Cags is going to get called up before Omaha, a month, maybe a month and a half, see how he's doing, and if he's ready to go by then, it's go time.
Up right before the All-Star break.
Right before the All-Star
series, breather.
Or even after the All-Star break, but have the understanding of, hey, at the end of the All-Star break, this is where you're going to be, right? Get the not the jitters necessarily out of the way, but come to terms with, okay, hey, last game before the All-Star break, hey, you're in. You're there. Take some time, understand what this moment means, get ready to go at the end of it. Because I think you were hoping at the time that the Royals would have been right there with the Tigers, essentially, in the division lead. You're not. So I think we saw a little bit of panic. I think we saw it going, man, our outfield combined has had 1 home run. When you look around the outfield, the names don't jump off the page.
No.
Nobody in that outfield is the reason that people are buying tickets.
Right.
As much as I love John Ray, I love those guys, but as much as we love them, they're not selling tickets at Kauffman.
No.
And so from a business standpoint, you looked at it and said, how do we immediately put more butts in seats when we're a losing ball club? Call up our top prospect. Because what You guys just said publicly as an organization, because in that situation on that Tuesday, Mike Jersley was the mouthpiece for the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So what your organization said 5 days before you called him up was that there were holes in his swings, was that there were holes in his swing, that he was not big league ready. He needed to work on a couple of things, and he was working with Rusty Kuntz in the outfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, 6 days later on Sunday, he's ready to go. And JJ Picollo is talking on Tuesday when he's making his major league debut in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, saw some really good things in AAA. He was there for a week and a half.
Yeah.
How did you see him? What did you see? You saw enough in his one home run that he hit was 442 feet to center field in AAA at home. At home, yes. What did you see in that span that said, you know what, from Tuesday when the series got started to now this last game of the series, he's ready to go? And we'll never get a clear-cut answer.
We will not, unfortunately. And I think there's one of those maxims that it feels like the Royals have lived by in the past, and that's when you think a guy's ready, give him another week. Give him another month. But I think you're right about just kind of the state of the team, where they were. And if the Royals had known that they'd be on the periphery of the wild card race, not in the thick of it, would they have had that patience till after the All-Star break? We'll see. What I'm monitoring in the second half, though, with him, Nick, is that approach, right? Will he take more pitches? What's he going to do on them? Because right now, Jack Caglione is hitting the ball on the ground 52.4% of the time. That's a problem. That's got to be closer to 40 or 45%. Just get the ball in the air, see what can happen, right? His actual...
Especially when you hit it as hard as he does.
Oh, yeah. Now, to be fair, his average exit velocity has dipped down to slightly below average at 89. But, again, you pick better pitches to swing at, you think that'll creep back up. Yeah. All this data comes from StatCast, by the way. Thanks to them for that. His actual batted ball data, 40% pull, 34% up the middle, and 26% oppo. I don't hate that. I would maybe take a little bit out of the straight up the middle percentage, 5-10%, and put that on the pull percentage. That's fine. Because, Nick, if you had to guess, what percentage of balls that Jack Caglione has put in play have been both pulled and in the air? The most important things for a slugger like him.
So pull. I mean, I would say, considering that 54 have been on the ground just in totality, I would say you're probably low 30s.
12%.
Okay, not even close.
12% of the balls that Jack Caglione has made contact with have been pulled and in the air.
Wow.
For a guy whose job it is to pull the ball in the air to put it over the wall.
Yeah, that makes it more alarming.
Some of that will come with approach. Some of that will come with scouting report and just getting used to Major League pitching. But it's got to turn around quick.
And I'm not saying to pull the plug and send him back down to the minors. Like, this is your bed. You made it. Now you got to lie in it. Like, you can't, because you don't want to mess with the mental psyche so much. But I mean, I can tell you this: they sent a lot of people to Omaha to watch him. Whether it was Ned Yost or whether it was obviously Rusty Kuntz, who helped with Alex Gordon's transition to the outfield. Whoever it may be. And Mike Jersley is as good as they come by in terms of managers and being there and being able to develop guys. We said it when they called him up. These are the types of moves that GMs either get extensions or a new job or they get fired for. And right now it's going opposite from what JJ Picollo wanted it to do or wanted it to be. And to that point, okay, here's your next challenge, JJ, to where trade deadline's here. What are you going to do about it? Which direction are you going to tell the fan base through your actions that the Royals are headed?
Braden Cato made his bed.
Yep.
He laid in it, and then he got out of bed. We'll wrap up with some Husker baseball recruiting news and thoughts when we get back to the baseball corner.
You're listening to the Baseball Corner with Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket. It's time for the second inning stretch. Get out of your seat, stretch, and get ready for the third inning.
Now's the best time to lock in early order savings on a new John Deere planter from Landmark Implement during the Early Order Program. Plant for success with the latest technology, including Exact Emerge high-speed planters that help you cover more acres with greater precision and productivity. Order your planter for next year now to unlock the biggest savings of the season. Contact your local Landmark location today and experience the Landmark difference.
Take control of your health with the DASH scan at Advanced Medical Imaging. The DASH scan is a full-body MRI designed for advanced health screening. This dynamic approach provides exceptionally sharp images across multiple organ systems, helping to detect potential concerns early. With minimal radiation and no invasive procedures, the DASH scan offers a safe, comprehensive look at your health. Plus, results are delivered faster than ever, giving both patients and physicians confidence in screening and diagnosis. Your health is too important to wait. Schedule your DASH scan today at Advanced Medical Imaging. Visit amimaging.com or call 402-484-6677 to learn more.
Grab your glove and hit the dirt. It's time for the third inning of the Baseball Corner with Nick Sainert and Austin Orman on 93.7 The Ticket.
That's right, third inning of the Baseball Corner. Austin Orman and Nick Sainert with you. We meant to lead the show with this. Had some really fun Major League Baseball discussions instead. But let's dive into the Nebraska baseball, not just Nebraska Huskers, but baseball in the state of Nebraska conversation as well. Nick, last week there was some news on the recruiting front. Nebraska commit Braden Cato out of Creighton Prep, decommitted from the Huskers. He's going just down the road, but staying in state from a Husker to a Blue Jay.
Yeah, really, kind of came out of nowhere in terms of just like baseball recruiting, and it wasn't expecting to have a Husker high school guy be making some news. I think this is telling on how baseball is viewed in the how do I say this without coming across too harsh? In no way is Creighton taking over the pecking order from Nebraska in terms of in-state baseball.
Mm-hmm.
But for how Creighton has not only played this year, but then also the way that Mark Kingston was able to kind of be there for this year and transition has been very valuable for the Blue Jays. The fact that they didn't have to go through a coaching search this season is incredible. And not only that, but you got an SEC coach as well. Kingston, obviously, with his time at South Carolina, it wasn't ultra successful in terms of the national landscape, but you know what it takes. You know what it takes to win. You know the type of investment that you need from the people around you.
Yeah.
And then the limitless connections you have to potentially build a staff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not great for Nebraska. And I would turn this around and looking at a big picture, maybe in a few minutes. What have we thought about Nebraska baseball's offseason? And
of all the off seasons they've had, it's certainly been one of them.
The one word I can have come to mind is underwhelming.
Kind of meh.
Yeah.
Kind of whatever.
Like hoping that a lot of these guys that they're picking and choosing from some small town D2 school or some JUCO, let's hope they stick. You're replacing a lot, and we're hearing what guys are doing in summer ball and things like that. But you got to perform. You have to perform, and so then you talk about guys like Cal Cooper. And I know you wanted to get to that in a second.
Well, I was going to say, just kind of in the bigger picture, Nebraska still, according to Prep Baseball Report, Nebraska does still have the top 4 players in the state in its recruiting class. According to Prep Baseball Report, it's Brody Gindra. Yep. Obviously impressed both of us at the state tournament.
Very much so.
Prep Baseball Report's number 2 in Nebraska is Cordell Klinkingbeard. I was less impressed by him at state baseball. Everyone goes through, tough weeks, so maybe there's something there for him. Number 3 in the state, Charlie Ziola from Creighton Prep. Number 4, Cal Anthony from Creighton Prep. And then Nebraska, of course, had the number 5 guy there in Braden Cato committed to them before he goes to Creighton. So I think Nebraska still is doing a good job of recruiting in the state, right? According to most metrics, they're getting the top players in the state. How many of these guys will be able to help Nebraska next season? Probably not many. Obviously not Gindra, right?
Yeah.
He's still a junior. Most of these guys are, but I'm less concerned about Cato on his face, just for him, just for that one player. But when you couple it with the Cal Cooper decommitment / pulling the scholarship, whatever went on behind the scenes there.
Yeah.
I was more impressed with Cal Cooper than I was Cordell Klinkenbeard on the mound, which makes me wonder what went into that. And then you see decommit and it goes, the player ends up going to Creighton.
Yeah.
It just doesn't sit right with you. Is it anything that I'm worried about for 2026? Not right now, unless this is the sign of things to come.
See, I actually would say it's okay to read into it. I think Creighton has dominated Nebraska the last 5 years. On the field,
yes.
On the field, they've dominated Nebraska the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's Nebraska's staff has not done a good enough job of consistently being able to reload. I think Max Anderson fell into their lap.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Matthews was very, very good, which, by the way, Bryce Matthews being the Houston Astros' #1 prospect, I completely missed that.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll be up there soon. I would imagine he's a very quickly after All-Star break call-up.
Unless he's a trade piece.
But I think that this is an indication that in the landscape of Nebraska Creighton baseball, Creighton is starting to creep up on Nebraska on this playing field.
Got new facilities coming as well, which Nebraska hasn't announced plans for new one in rev share. But I think that's as we look at the rev share.
All they do is just post pictures and say, look what we do. We have.
Right. As we look at the rev share era, though, Nick, I will grant you very well could be right. I think there are reasons for concern. I'm just saying as we just look at the Cato news, maybe the Cal Cooper as well.
Yep.
I'm willing to grant you there could be cause for concern there, but right now I'm just saying I'm monitoring more so than I'm concerned. But where I look big picture is I feel like Creighton has that infusion of fresh blood, guy that's been around the program in an SEC program for a while, and Mark Kingston seems like a despicably good hire for them from this side of things. Plus the facilities on top of that, plus in rev share, it's men's basketball, probably still volleyball, even though KBB is gone. And then baseball and women's basketball, I think, are fighting for third, whereas at Nebraska, baseball is probably fighting for fifth on a good day.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know if Creighton, I mean, I know there's plenty of money. I don't know what Creighton brings in annually in terms of revenue. Obviously, being a private school, it's a little bit different. But it stands to reason that Creighton has a bigger chunk of the pie to give to baseball, which would not be a good sign for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think maybe I just sit here, and this is going to be pushed back on, and I know it will. I don't feel like Nebraska has won enough.
No, I think fans would tell you they haven't won enough.
Like they haven't, and people are going to, like the casualists, and I get it, look at this year and be like, well, Nick, they won a Big Ten title. How could you be pissed? I'm not mad, but the way they should have never even been in the position that they were in to get there. Mm-hmm. They should not have been scratching and clawing to get into the Big Ten tournament. You are fortunate. I've said it time and time again. You are fortunate that the Big Ten baseball tournament is in your backyard. Mm-hmm. The fact that you even are scratching and clawing to get there is an indictment on your ability to consistently win and produce day after day. I said this on the show this morning with Jay. And I love this quote, and I don't know who originally said it. I did hear Jim Deshaies, the broadcaster, say it though yesterday when listening to the game. He said, "Baseball in the micro is different than baseball in the macro."
Yes,
baseball in the micro, day to day, it is very unpredictable. Mm-hmm. In the macro, it is very predictable. And it's easier in Major League Baseball than it is in college baseball, but I think the mentality can still be the same. Nebraska looked at it, and they have this opinion macro, or this thought process on the macro at the beginning of the year. If they see, okay, preseason top 25, we won the Big Ten tournament a couple of years ago. We have this guy coming back, this guy coming back, this guy coming back. We are going to be competing for a Big Ten championship and hosting a regional. But if you don't have the correct mindset in the micro, you're screwed, because we saw the difference. We saw the difference in the way that Nebraska's mindset shifted late in the season when they looked at it and said, oh, bleep, our backs are up against the wall. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it's not too late.
Well, and they did just enough.
Yes.
They didn't leave no doubt even from that point on. I go back to the fact they never swept a Big Ten series.
Yeah.
And they didn't exactly play the gauntlet in the second half of the year, which to your point, the blueprint for Nebraska is obviously 21. If you can get that level of talent.
Is it?
But if you can't do that, if that's going to be a pie in the sky,
But there wasn't that.
it's got to be 2 seasons ago now, where you're winning closer to 40 games.
Yeah.
You can either second seed in the Big Ten tournament.
Yes.
And then they make a regional from there, right? There's no reason Nebraska can't build that team repeatedly, which is where I will echo your sentiment 100%. And that, yes, the Big Ten tournament is great, but we would have a lot different conversation if the Big Ten tournament was gravy instead of the entire meal.
Yeah.
Where if Nebraska's in, mid 30s and above in wins, instead of scrapping, fighting, and clawing to get to 30, they've all but locked up an NCAA regional appearance. Hopefully you can win your pool and advance to the semis where you're in the Final Four or whatever. Maybe win a game there, and then you're safe in the tournament. Otherwise, you're waiting on bubble results. We would feel a lot better about Nebraska baseball if it was a consistent 36-37 win regular season team than having to rely on magic. Because that, to me, when you say, oh, they're winning, they've won 2 straight Big Ten tournaments, that's not sustainable. You can't bank on winning the Big Ten tournament every year, so you have to build that foundation in the regular season that gives you the Big Ten tournament as your margin for error.
I also, and maybe this is next week, I don't know if 2021 can be the blueprint anymore.
Okay.
I don't know if
that just all the stars aligned?
I think stars aligned. I think also you had a team that had an incredible mindset.
Okay.
For the adversity that they faced the year after COVID, you need it. I think it takes a very specific type of mindset and mental fortitude to be able to go and do that. Take care of business. I wonder if Nebraska will be able to find a team like that ever again, because they didn't have this superior amount of talent. It was just a bunch of dudes that just played baseball
and loved playing baseball.
Yes. That might not be gettable now. I think there's a difference between that, and then there's the other side of that is your ability to develop guys. I think you can develop skill sets. I don't know if you can develop mentality. And I think what allowed Nebraska to be so successful in 2021 was the innate mentality that guys like Hallmark had. Yeah. That guys like Joe Acker had. The guys, I mean, even Griffin Everett.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. I think Luke Roscom. Like those types of guys.
Chance Roach?
Yeah. Nebraska has not been able to find a consistent number 2.
No.
And then on top of that, a consistent guy to come in and slam the door shut.
Right.
And so I don't know. I would love 2021 to be able to be duplicated or replicated. I think, though, the farther we get away from it, me personally, I'm sitting here saying maybe that's easier said than done.
I think that's a really good conversation for us to have next week. We are up against the clock. We'll get out of here. Should be one-on-one with DP coming up next. I'll be sitting in there with him for that. But yeah, think about it. We'll get to that next week. Give us your thoughts. 402-464-5685. Talk to us about it throughout the week, and we will hit that. Is 2021 replicable for Nebraska baseball moving forward, or will that be the pie in the sky? Hey, they did it one year, and that's that. He's Nick. I'm Austin. It's been a blast on Baseball Corner. We'll do it again next Monday.